261, 229, 206, and 271. These are the number of diagnosed concussions for the 2012 to 2015 preseason and regular season as reported by the NFL. Repeated head trauma such as concussions can lead to degenerative brain conditions like Alzheimer's, depression, and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. Head injuries are a dangerous part of American football, a sport that many Americans enjoy. I have been a fan of American football for a long time, and I've done research on the internet on concussions and CTE. First, I'll illustrate the popularity of American football in the United States. Then I will look at the force of the hits in American football and the consequence of those hits. Finally, I will look at precautions being taken in order to reduce the amount of head trauma in American football. Head injuries are a dangerous part of American football, a sport that many Americans enjoy. Football is very popular in the United States. Millions of fans cheer on their favorite teams during the season. The TV advertisement revenue last season alone for the NFL was $3.5 billion, as reported by Kurt Badenhausen for Forbes. According to Nielsen, the average audience for the Super Bowl last year was 111.3 million viewers, and an estimated 70% of U.S. homes with a television were tuned in. Many people also participate in football in the U.S., from youth leagues to the 32 pro teams that make up the NFL. A survey conducted by the National Federation of State High School Associations found that 1,114,253 high school boys and girls participated in football for 2014 to 2015. For 2015 to 2016, the NCAA reported 73,660 participants in college football. Once cut down to their active rosters and practice squads, there are about 2,016 players in the NFL. Now that I've discussed the popularity of American football, let's take a look at the force of some of the big hits delivered during the game and the consequences of those crushing tackles. Repeated concussions sustained while playing football can permanently damage a player's brain. Football players run into each other at great speeds, exerting enormous amounts of force. According to the NFL, most concussions occur when a player's helmet is impacted by another player's helmet or shoulder, as well as hitting the playing surface. Micheline Dusleff writes for NPR that when 6'4", 335-pound defensive tackle Haloti Ngata, whose 40-yard dash time was under 5 seconds, hits the quarterback, at full speed he exerts about 1,700 pounds of force. When the hit is focused on a smaller area, like the helmet of another player, the force becomes much greater. As you can see here, a helmet hit from Haloti Ngata is about 8.4 tons of force. A mild traumatic brain injury, or concussion, is defined by the Mayo Clinic as a traumatic brain injury that affects your brain function. The symptoms of a concussion can be hard to detect and can last several days or even weeks. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention groups the symptoms of a concussion into 4 categories: thinking and remembering, physical, emotional, and sleep. Football players can develop CTE as a result of repeated head trauma. The Mayo Clinic defines chronic traumatic encephalopathy as a very rare condition that has been found in the brains of people who play contact sports as well as others. CTE is only able to be diagnosed after death during the autopsy. And here's a picture of a normal brain compared to advanced CTE. Little is currently known about CTE. The possible signs and symptoms include cognitive impairment, depression, suicidal thoughts or behavior, impulsive behavior, memory loss, emotional instability, and substance abuse. There's currently no known cure for CTE. Now that I've discussed the dangers of football concerning concussions, I will now explain what's being done to make the game safer. There are steps being taken to attempt to make the game safer. The NFL has strict concussion protocol that must be followed when dealing with an injured player. If it is determined by observable and/or player-reported signs and symptoms that a player may have a concussion, the NFL sideline concussion protocol or concussion test is administered. During the preseason, players and club personnel receive educational materials regarding concussions. A physical exam occurs during preseason where the player is asked about previous concussions, as well as a neuropsychological testing for each player that is used as a baseline when assessing a player on the sideline. Players must go through the return to play process in order to return from a concussion. This includes returning to baseline symptoms and neurological exam, a graduated exercise challenge, and be cleared by both the team doctor and an independent neurological consultant. Many youth and high school leagues are adapting safer ways to play football. Programs like the Heads Up Football, which began in 2012 and is now implemented by more than 7,000 high schools and youth programs, focus on safer gameplay and emphasize safer tackling with the head up. And heads up tackling is seen there. Flag football continues to gain popularity in the U.S., especially for youth players. This version is safer because there is no tackling and therefore significantly less risk of concussion. Today, I first discussed the popularity of American football in the United States. Second, I discussed the dangers of repeated concussions sustained from playing football. Finally, I explained what's being done to make the game safer. Head injuries are a dangerous part of American football, a sport that many Americans play. In conclusion, American football is a fun and exciting sport with millions of fans and players in the United States. It's important to remember that it is a hard-hitting contact sport. That's what some of its appeal. That being said, we must also look at the consequence of repeated concussions such as CTE and continue to improve the game to make it safer for many generations of players to come.